Welcome to Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers. Welcome to Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers. I'm Spike.
And I'm Claire.
And today we're talking to Gene Olczak from Karma Sauce. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Very pleased to meet you and to spend some time with Claire, who I've only met briefly. So this is awesome.
Yeah, I was really excited when you said you'd come on the show because we could have a chance to chat all things hot sauce.
Yeah, I'm a big admirer of what you're doing in Vermont, your sauces and the vibe. I think it's just fantastic. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
A plus. So.
I love everything that you're doing too.
You like my new shirt is Claire's shirt. She sent it to me and I'm very happy.
Yeah, that's definitely the best shirt on the show right now. So there you go.
I'm just wearing a green shirt.
I will give props to the Chili Pepper Institute. I think they're doing great work with, their breeding programs and so forth to help,
awesome.
propel chilies into the future, new varietals that resist drought.
That's really cool.
Yeah. The last conference I went to, you see that. I bet you there's a lot of different growing or conferences that have a lot of, climate change built into them. Like we're going to make sure that these things are surviving in the future so that people can eat. That's a focus. So
I actually don't really know anything about them. I want to learn more.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's started through the instigation of John Hard, the grandfather of craft hot sauce, so to speak. He kind of nudged me into supporting the institute, and so I've been happy to do that. And I went out to a conference just a couple of years ago. And got to hear all of the activities around, we found these chilies with these high flavonoids in Eastern Europe, and we're crossbreeding them because they have better drought tolerance, better tolerance for lots of water as well. So they're trying to, all those extremes that we're experiencing now in climate, we expect to get worse. So they're trying to make these chilies more robust to those circumstances. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Are they part of a university? Are they a private organization?
Oh, yeah, they're part of Las Cruces, New Mexico State. So that's where the campus is located. It's kind of cool. You go in there and they're like, oh, they've got all that rodeo ring over here, like on the way in. So there's all this like very Western sort of stuff there. And of course, Hatch Chilies Hatch is right down the road where you do the Hatch Chilies. So it's a fun little area to check out.
I'm always interested in chili pepper varietals because they, like jalapenos, I feel like change wildly. Like they just don't hold stability. There's so many people growing that. I don't know what it is about jalapenos specifically, but like serranos seem to be, the hot rod is just going strong after so many years. But then there's the whole chili pepper crazy world, which is probably a little differentiated from the Chili Pepper Institute. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they did do, some early work in the, in evaluating and try to trace what's going on with the Butylochias and the the Moruga scorpions, which they still have tested. Now, some of these other more niche ones that are out there, and I won't, we can talk about specific varietals and names, but, they're not really making their way into the test there per se, but they are doing some other genome mapping. I don't think they've published anything lately on that, but I know that's been kind of a project that was ongoing a few years ago, but they have some new staff, and so I'm not sure where that sits. I mean, that's kind of a sideline, because that's really not paying the bills for them. It's like, how do we improve these New Mex chilies? They do a lot of research into the landrace varietals up through northern New Mexico, the indigenous, because it's about, it's in New Mexico, and it's a global thing, but they're really into their local chilies there. If you've visited New Mexico, you know that that's their thing. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what I got. That's all about the t-shirts.
That's
awesome.
Super cool.
That was great.
We have to look into that. And we just kind of jumped into things. We just started going straight into chili peppers, which is awesome.
I have no outlines. I don't even know what we were going to talk about, but I'm like, I could freewheel on this subject pretty well.
That's kind of what this podcast is. Yeah. It's a bunch of nerds who love hot sauce and love talking about.
Yeah, let me see. What am I
talking
from my hand?
Well, your people said that we couldn't talk about the brown M&Ms. So.
Oh, all right, okay. Well, the brown chilies, though, they have all those. Yeah, they're good. So anyway.
But tell us your history with spicy food and hot sauce.
It's the funniest thing because my mom, who recently passed away, but she said, I don't know where this where did all this chili pepper, this spicy food love come from? But I always remember that when I was a kid, when we, finally got a real Mexican restaurant in town out in Suffolk. I grew up on Long Island, pretty rural area, built up more now, but there was not even a stoplight in town. It was we lived, we were kind of poor. I lived in a house built in 1880 right on Montauk Highway. No heat except for like a furnace grate in the basement. It was a little colder in the 70s, say, than it is now. But surrounded by, mostly abandoned farm fields, like wild strawberries. There used to be duck farms surrounding it. Like one of the last functioning duck farms on Long Island was behind me. I used to cut it through to go to my friend's house. So fairly rural environment. And, my mom was big into gardening, vegetable gardening, all kinds. She had a great green thumb, did fantastic things, in the yard. And, I would say the way I put it now is like begrudgingly, I had to do all this turning of soil with the shovel and got that, dirt under my fingernails that eventually years later seemed to resurface, when I became an adult. I was like, oh, I want to grow tomatoes and do this. So I was a pretty avid vegetable gardener. I'll do other types of plants, but mostly I'm just into what are the things I can eat. So, pastas or whatever, that's all right. And I know how to, mend those, adjust pH, and do all the kinds of horticultural things that you might want to do to grow those. Vegetables were it for me, and especially chili peppers. We made a couple of moves around the state. I've spent more time of my life around Rochester than anywhere. I had worked for the General Electric research labs. I do work on like space telescopes and stuff. That was my day job. James Webb Space Telescope was my last big project.
Nice.
Thank you. When we moved back after our kids were born, I have a son and a daughter. My wife had grown up near here. I mean, she wanted to move away in the first place for some government work reason in the first place. So I was very amenable to moving back. We bought this house in the winter and didn't realize how all these locust trees were going to impact us shade-wise. And so I found out that I couldn't grow anything except for like maybe some early arugula before the locust trees came in and just blocked the sun. So we had some neighbors across the way that are acupuncturists. They have this nice studio, and they're very, really Zen, chill folks. And we talked. They said, we want to know more about how to do this, vegetable growing. If you help us with these, we'll do a shared garden in our backyard. It was their backyard because they had the sun, and they had a little puppy named Karma at the same time. And so we were setting up the beds, putting asparagus in for the long haul. And I just remember Karma just grabbing the carrot seeds and running away from, grabbing the packet out of just tore up the packet. She grabs it and just spreads the carrots across the lawn, which we got none of. So, and that's kind of where it started. And what happened was, as we got to the end of the season, peak of the season is really the way to put it. I mean, I still have tomatoes going now and peppers out there at the moment. We're on a wing and a prayer with frost, of course, at this point, but
yeah.
So they said, hey, we want to do this locavore challenge with our clients. And so then I was like, I jumped all over that. And I'm like, okay, there's no olive trees around here, so I'm not going to use any olive oil. I'm going to go to the Syracuse salt marshes to get my salt, and so really just kind of geeked out on it. And that's where the Karma sauce idea came from. It was really one sauce initially. And I was like, well, carrots are a thing. Of course, I lost all my carrots as I told the story. So the Nobelesian style, that might have fit. I ended up just doing this butternut squash base for the first prototype. And then Laura Che, who's the neighbor, the Che Warrens, Rick Warren, Laura Che, she said, wow, this is great. You could quit your day job with this. And, I guess it went to my head. And so then I was like, I got to come up with the name for this. And then I realized at that point I had made a mild version that that Rick and my wife, Kelly, would prefer, and then a hot version that Laura and I would prefer. And so I was like, I have a hot version, a mild version. What am I going to call this? And then I was walking down the street. I was like, Karma sauce. Like, we have good karma, bad karma, just in the dog, and the whole thing just kind of, it clicked in my mind to go ahead and do that. And then I went to this really weird thing where I was looking at making it myself, but then I didn't think I could do that. So I took better process control school, which, anyone listening, that you have to do that to be able to commercially sell in New York State. Some other states have cottage laws that you may get away with not doing that, but certainly in New York State, that's a requirement, and as is a 20C license. So I was working with a university kitchen that wasn't a shared use kitchen. And unfortunately, back then, there weren't any shared use kitchens in our area. There are now. So if somebody was starting in Rochester now, they would have more opportunity to do something, which has been true in places like Brooklyn for quite a bit longer. But, I went around, and for a variety of reasons, it just didn't work out. My wife said, well, why don't you just build a, kitchen in the garage? And I'm like, I was surprised that she would let me do that, but she put that out there. So we framed in one garage bay. We have, pretty good sized garage. So it was easy to partition. And I just built this 20C licensed kitchen, in the garage with, it's hard to imagine this, just like, oh yeah, I'm buying this barely dented 40-gallon steam jacketed kettle off of eBay, sight unseen, for $7,000. That's a normal thing people do. You're right.
I mean, I think it is.
So, and that's, people had to, what's your success? It took me forever to make any money doing this, like years and years. Right. So, but I think I had to stick to it in this because it's hard. If you just co-pack with someone, it's easy to buy a pallet of something or whatever and say, oh, that didn't work out, and walk away from it. When you've got this commercial kitchen that you spend hours and hours building with this 40-gallon kettle in the middle of it, it's a little bit harder to ignore. So that's kind of my overcommitment was the key to sticking with it. Then, I was bouncing around growing stuff, and I was like, an itinerant farmer in the sense that I would try to lease here or there. I got hosed one year on a reason, like 3 years in, for reasons I won't go into, other than I can say that you can't grow chili peppers where there are ferns, and I wasn't sold on the fern plot, but anyway. So I ended up buying a farm just 30 miles away, and just started getting into growing chili peppers, and that just kind of took off. And then when I got involved with Hot Ones, it really took off. And then I started saying, oh, I can't really do all of this myself on evenings and weekends. We're going to have to do a little bit more. And so I got introduced to a really great Mennonite farmer, Nelson Hoover, through Cornell's solanaceous crop expert, Judson Reed. And he said, hey, I get this guy. He's like one of the best Mennonite farmers in the area for vegetables. And we do a lot of our field trials with this guy. And I think he could, do your chili peppers, And so started doing, a few thousand, 1,000 plants, 5,000 plants, 12,000 plants. And then I had my own farm going at the same time. Then I'm using him as a mentor. He's like, my brother-in-law calls it, the Tom Brady of chili pepper growing, or generally vegetable growing. So he was kind of our point man. And we had, our place, my brother-in-law's place, and a couple of other places that we were growing the chilies, plus all the other local farms that are already there for things like onions and squash and, the typical crops that you're going to see at our local farmers markets. But, no one's going to say, look, I have 1,000 pounds of ghost peppers. You want to buy them? That's not a thing a rational person does. So we really got into a lot of these specialty pepper growings. People are really surprised. Oh, you can grow scorpion peppers in upstate New York? Yes, we can. Only just. You have to be really good, do everything exactly at the right time. Then you may not get a crop on those. It's just sort of the level of hierarchy of, okay, I can grow bell peppers and I can grow jalapenos. Habanero is a little tough, not that tough. You're probably going to get a pretty good crop. Will you get 4 pickings like Nelson? You probably will not, But then if you try to get really beyond that, it's like ghost peppers, okay. Scorpions or any of those like sort of primo types or reaper types, it's like you better be on your toes, or those you're going to be staring at green frozen peppers that are this big, at the end of the season. Unless you do hoop houses, which I did do hoop houses as well. But Nelson is a mentor. I really, he kind of showed me that if you're on your toes and on your game, you didn't need to do that. But you have to be like really on your toes to make it happen. So anyway, I can go into, I am talking uninterrupted for a long time and you're nodding, but I appreciate your patience.
This is what this is all about. We love this.
Yeah.
I'm Claire George. I own Butterfly Bakery of Vermont. We make hot sauce, mustard, cookies, and granola, and 100% of our products are made with Vermont ingredients. The thing that I hear most often from people is that my hot sauce tastes like the peppers that are in it. We do really simple recipes that don't get too crazy and nitpicky, just to really accentuate the flavor of the peppers that are in there. the unique thing about our hot sauces is how much we feature the farm and the relationship with the farm and really bring the terroir of Vermont to our hot sauces. I am pretty sure I am the #1 purchaser of Vermont-grown chili peppers. I would love it if there would be a legitimate pepper market in Vermont where people would know Vermont for its peppers. We're all better for supporting each other. And I think that part really shows itself with the collaborations that I do with the other businesses and the other farms, that I love working together and coming up with new ideas and presenting each other with new challenges. And I think overall that's the attitude here. And I absolutely love it because that's my attitude. I try to live my life with love. The ingredients that I use, I would say that my values are reflected in that I use ingredients that, again, feel good, feel loving, feel supportive. The relationship with the farmer was how it all began. If I changed the reason for it being, if I went out and bought some commodity peppers, it might not be as good.
You can find Butterfly Bakery of Vermont hot sauce, mustard, granola, and cookies at butterflybakeryvt.com.
So, that's just the growing part. And then, of course, I have my little factory, and, then that's a whole other thing.
I'm assuming you've moved out of the garage by now.
Yeah, we moved out of the garage about 7 years ago. We moved into another facility that was really horrible. It was like worse than the garage for a while. Then we moved to, after that. We had good warehouse space it was like an old chicken processing room with like really inadequate ventilation. And that was a couple of funny stories there. We had there was a neighbor who was doing like meal prep for like hospitals, that we shared on the other side of this warehouse. And then there was nothing between us and them, really, except for a sheet of plywood. And I can tell you with some great certainty, unlike what we have in our factory now, they did not have any makeup air. And so they had their fan ventilation going. And so at that time, it was little enough peppers where it'd just be, okay, me and one volunteer of the 3 people I had on the crew on a Saturday taking, 1,000 pounds or whatever. And I have this 5 horsepower hammer mill. So what we do is we basically in late August through, end of October or whenever the frost hits or the peppers are all picked, whichever comes first, we just mill these up, we destem in the field, and then we mill everything up on the chinense. We primarily grow chinense. And just put them in 5-gallon pails and freeze them and stack them. And then we decide what we're going to do with them later, unless we're going to do something smoking thing ahead of that, which we don't often do with those particular peppers. But so we were doing that, and on a Saturday, I guess they had a Saturday shift at the place because apparently when we got in with the ghost peppers, I got this angry call from the owner about something about his manager puking next door. We're in there with our PPE because you got to have it, right? So we're all masked up, and we got the giant nitrile or whatever they are, heavy duty gloves and the smocks and everything, and these suckers are over there sucking our air out into their space and just like choking to death.
Oh my goodness.
I felt bad about that, but I was like, well, how do I schedule this so we don't do that to you again? Because that's all I can do. I can't change your air handling, which you need if you're, they have burners and things going in there, so they can't manage that. What we do now, we actually have, it's amazing because we had a bumper crop last year. We had 80,000 pounds of peppers. So we we're like, well, depending on the mix, we don't need all of those types this year. So we cut down a little bit, but we still do, 4,000 pounds on a day, of milling. But now it's a much bigger facility. And the key thing is in our processing area, we have, positive pressure, but the way our building's set up, there's actually tenants on the 3rd through 5th floor. And there's like a shared use hallway that you could come down. And so we actually pull air out of that hallway, because when we push air into the room to make sure we have positive pressure, which we need for our safety regulations, then that means that air that would be pushed out would be coming back into that hallway. So we try to recapture it and move it out fast again into the filter and back into and then eventually it'll make it out the hood. But we push about 50% more air into the room that's going out the hood. So it's always positive, but then always kind of clearing out the hallway so we're not choking out the tenants. And they're amazingly tolerant of our chili pepper, making hot sauce nearly every day kind of thing. So it's amazing that they are. So we're not really killing anyone there, but this is the most we're in the middle of the most challenging time of year if you're a neighbor or a visitor.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
and it's a cool time to have a hot sauce company now, whereas it probably wasn't as cool back when you were gassing people out before.
Yeah. So it's but you guys, you learn like where don't touch anything. Be careful around the knobs on the sink. It's like wash your hands before you wash your hands, before you take off your gloves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Multiple.
Do you know about using hydrogen peroxide?
I haven't used that. That would make some sense though.
That is like my discovery that hydrogen peroxide will take the burn off your hands.
Wow.
If you get hydrogen peroxide, or if you get chili peppers where they don't belong.
Yeah.
If you get, chili peppers on your hands, wash. Just do all the washing. But when you still have the capsaicin on your hands, spray them with hydrogen peroxide. And you have to do a couple doses, but it gets into the crevices and it breaks it up.
So it breaks down those organic pieces. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, because it's a good disinfectant.
And I discovered that from hydrogen peroxide is also good for eczema, which is kind of a surprising thing.
That's where I know it because when I was a child, I used to have really bad eczema, and I had some. So I was doing hydrogen peroxide. So when I was like 11,
the bleach baths, and I have eczema, and I had an admin in my office who had eczema, and she was getting rid of some compost, and I told her to wear gloves. She went and grabbed the thermal gloves, which are fabric, as opposed to the vinyl gloves.
Yeah.
And so she basically just saturated her hands in chili pepper, in like compost chili pepper juice. And so we were talking about, she was like, oh my God, it hurts so much. And we were talking about we had been talking about hydrogen peroxide for eczema. And then we were like, maybe this would work for this. It hurts. It feels like eczema. We tried it and it totally works.
That's I'm not personally picking chili peppers right now, except for my backyard. But when I was picking them doing a lot more picking, I do remember things that were as hot as, just say, habaneros. I would, not wear gloves picking those because I'm like, oh, my hands are a little warm. It's and it's like late October. This is kind of nice, It's, like, it's harder to de-stem when you got gloves on. But then they're usually it's not too bad. It's when you accidentally grab like a bad pepper that's mushy. That inside, you get to the placenta, and then that stuff is on your hands from the inside, and then that's trouble. Yeah. But you still don't want to touch anything sensitive. Your hands are one thing, but you can wash those up. A little warmth is okay, but then it's like later in the day, it may not be as welcome. And so, before I touch anything sensitive, I may do like a little eye test. We're like, okay, I'll just let's do that. If I do this,
you could also just taste it. That seems safer than putting it near your eye.
Well, that's probably less sensitive though. It depends on what level you're trying to get to. So that's probably the first line of defense. That's a good idea. Yeah, I go right to I wash my hands really good. Let me try this.
I was working with some regular, the lower end jalapenos, the kind of cheapest ones recently. And man, I washed my hands a bunch of times. And even the next day I could feel it. And there's usually not the case with those, but it was just for whatever reason, they stuck.
Yeah. They could surprisingly burn you on occasion. I remember just almost being taken down because I was like, so I can't remember if these were like Biker Billy, like to your point earlier, it's like, the habaneros are like the worst for like, okay, I'm just going to go buy some you have to like know what the seed is and to have any chance at all of getting something reliable. And then, maybe then it's not good enough. And, I jokingly blame, I think it's Texas A&M who came up with the first mild jalapenos. I'm like, you Texans ruined everything,
And number 2 is worse.
Yeah. So, but I remember just going around one day, and I think maybe it was the Serranos. I don't know. I picked my daughter off from field hockey, and I wanted to take a look at the patch because it's 25 minutes to my house from there. And it's like, okay, I'm getting you for your game. You're riding along with me. And I didn't have anything to eat like all day. And I stopped by the field, and I'm like, I'm going to try this chili pepper. And it's an animal. It's not terribly hot. So I eat one, but I'm hungry also. So also I'm eating, I must have ate like 8 of them, on a dry stomach, no water, no nothing. So I'm like, oh, I don't feel, then I started feeling like a little bit off, and I'm like, I'm not getting taken down by these chili peppers. There's no way. And then luckily she had like this much water in her, like, manky field hockey bottle that was just like a couple of tablespoons of water was enough to rescue me from out of my peril and like settle my stomach. But it was kind of funny. I've had far worse experiences, but not too many because I'm not like a chili pepper challenge person. My tolerance creeps up in different ways at different times, but it's one of those things where I try not to push it because I like to try to stay grounded and be able to like have some relative sense of what people who like mild stuff appreciate.
Yeah. What percentage of your chili peppers do you grow yourself?
It depends. Like almost all of our Carbo branded stuff is near. I think it's 100% of what we.
Nice.
Unless it's a bell pepper, we don't grow bell peppers, so we can. We try to get them local in season. It's a question of planning to some extent. So, for example, with like onions, even our local onion farms do run out of onions, especially jumbo onions. So, I don't know if you have seen experiences where you are. We have some bigger muck farms around, so they're big potato and onion farms. But when they will package like Texas onions when they run out. You'll see them same bag.
Oh, okay.
They have onions for sale, but same place, but it's not the local one. So
right.
We've done and the same thing with squash. Our local squash, which is the best possible butternut squash we can get. It's like Martin Farms. It's like I'm getting it the day they have a lathe system there where they peel it and get the seeds out, and then they actually make butternut squash oil with the seeds, which is super cool. Really great product. We use that and right now just one of our products. I've thought about extending that because I think it passes the allergen test. There's no allergen associated with that I know of, but you can get a sesame vibe too. Anyway, so did I go? I think I interrupted myself and forgot what I was saying.
What percentage of your
peppers? So we use all those chili peppers, and then some of our big things like Los Calientes, where it's heatness and it blows up and out of nowhere kind of a thing. Then we're buying stuff from West Coast or Mexico for some of those things.
Right.
It's tricky because as you know, it's not like you can say, we have this idea in March and let's just have this out in August. It's like no, we should start thinking around securing seeds in November to make sure we can get them, unless we save them, which we do a lot of as well. But if we want something new, we have to go find those seeds, hopefully in not 10 seed packets, which has been a problem. I had somebody who's like, well, you can buy as many of these 10. Can I get I want to work with your stuff. You're local. It's like, well, you can buy as many of these 10 packs as you like. Good luck. It's like, well, okay, that's not going to work for me. So then, you have to you're starting to think about getting the starts going here in the Northeast in February, right? So you're getting the greenhouse work going, and then, that's it. So it's a lot of advanced planning, and you hope for the best. And then, we have with our growing programs, we commit to the acreage, and if there's more peppers, then we'll, to the greatest extent possible, we've never said, hey, we're not going to take those. It's basically they get a higher yield, we take everything. So we just keep the quality up. That's the main thing, is making sure we're getting fully ripe peppers. It's the funniest thing, because when I was working with Nelson initially, I did all this research and I found this grape growers contract. And the reason I was so into the contract is I'm thinking, he doesn't know me. He's making a big investment in his acreage. I want to make sure I'm giving him a solid contract so that he can be comfortable. And at the end of the day, he looked at it and goes, oh, we haven't really used the contracts at all.
Yep.
But, we've been doing it for more than 5 years now. So, and, it was a little tough to tell him this year that we were growing less than last year, but I had to make sure I'm giving him something to do, because you got to keep that relationship alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, fortunately, he's diversified. So he's got a 10-acre pumpkin field. He's doing hoop house tomatoes. He's got a lot of other business besides chili peppers.
Flavor Balance Heat, the podcast for hot sauce lovers and makers, is brought to you by Irish Spike's unique hot sauces and Vandal pepper sauces. I'm Spike, the owner and executive saucier. Our sauces are handmade in the Pacific Northwest using the best possible ingredient. We believe that hot sauce equates to a balance of sensational heat coupled with a robust and complex flavor profile. Live your hottest life with Irish Spikes. Irish Spike's unique hot sauces and Vandal pepper sauces are available at saucecult.com.
But, I noticed some new flower boxes on the house after a few years. I'm like, a new hammock. And I'm like, Nelson, you're not flipping this place, are you? You got to stay right here. He's like, what? So that's great. And then now I've actually sold my own farm, and I gave all my equipment to my brother-in-law in Nunde, so he's doing great. stuff with it. He's come along with vegetable farming, a long time, horse farming, and lives on an old dairy farm down in Nunde. A little bit more challenging weather than what we have here, but still pretty good. We have a lot of microclimates in this area.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
I can't imagine. I mean, running a hot sauce company by itself is so tiring, but to have to do the growing as well, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it became a bit too much for me to do both of those things. I really couldn't. And so then I'm like depressed because I can't really, not depressed, but depressed. I'm like, great things are happening, but I can't, I can't be down at the farm, like, walking around and weeding and all that stuff all the time. It's just, there wasn't really time anyway for me really to do that. There's just too much going on with, 15 people working at the factory here in Rochester. So
awesome.
Delegating's not a strength of mine, but
Is it for any of us?
I know. I've had to really make myself do it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's a thing. I meant to tell you, when we first started putting everything together for a hot sauce company, and we started looking at small batch hot sauce companies around the country, yours was one of the first ones we had.
Huh.
I had just remembered that this morning when I was looking at, today's the day we're interviewing. It was like just a nice memory back to the early days, when we had no clue what we were getting into.
Gene, when did you start Karma? When did you start selling hot sauce?
2010, I think we sold. I incorporated in 2009, but I was playing around with that as I was going around, figuring how am I going to do this. I'd done a little batch, and we went down. So I volunteered over the years at the at Food Link. It's like the local food bank, and they actually used to own a hydroponic farm. And I went in there, I did some work in the hydro, and they have this festival food event in Rochester where it's a charity event, and so we I conspired to make a couple of test batches of the sauce, and we're sampling it there with different things. I try to remember when we actually got on the market. It was quite a bit. I think it was well late into 2010, though. I have to see exactly when that was. I have just the incorporation date's easier for me to find. I'll have to make a new scrapbook about that. But I was doing it all evenings and weekends just up until about 7 years ago. It wasn't until the James Webb project was winding down, so I'd been making trips. It was the funniest thing because the director of the optics on there is like, yeah, we really want to. I designed the center of curvature tests and some of the software. It was kind of a big deal project, and Lee Feinberg, who manages that, he's like, we really want to see Gene down here in Houston. And it's like, well, I got peppers to pick, I can't make it till next week. And so it's like this, ridiculous conversation that everyone's like, how can that be a thing? What are you doing? And so, that until once that finally wrapped up all the testing on, it was, what was that hurricane? Harvey hit. So the bad hurricane that hit Houston and buried it.
Yeah.
That was my last day in Houston working on that project. I was going to leave on Saturday. The hurricane hit on Friday night, I think. And, that's what it was. It hit on Friday, and Kelly was freaking out about me being down there. I'm like, well, I talked to the guys down here. They tell me they get 15 inches of rain all the time. It's no big deal. And then, I think it was Thursday. I was sitting, working, and now, the phones are kind of going in and out, and I hear on the radio that the place, maybe 1,000 feet away from where I'm sitting on the NASA facility is voluntary evacuation. I'm like, well, maybe I should see if I can get a flight out of Dallas and hit the road, so I did, but it was they were raindrops. And it was really eerie. There was nobody on that road, and I was leaving town. And so, and anyone who stayed there was there for weeks, basically stuck there. Oh, wow. They were still working. They were carpooling through the floods and all that to get to the facility, in SUVs, whoever had them. So they kept the test going, at, 34 Kelvin with all this tankers of liquid nitrogen and all that coming and going to the facility through the entire hurricane. So just crazy in that aftermath of the mess that it was. So that was when I went full time. So I talked to Noah and Ed Heaton, this Noah Chamberg, which we all know. And, when I told him, well, I'm going to do this business full time starting, in January or next year, he said, oh, by the way, Chris would like you to, would like Extreme Karma on the show. And, so that was really I was going to go full time anyway, but that kind of made it easy to do so. I had just a few months earlier than that, they had said, hey, we want to do a custom sauce. And it was kind of funny because I told what I'm thinking. I said, oh, that's great. Custom sauce. So cool. Like, well, what are you looking for? He goes, well, we want to do something with fennel. And my thought was, anything else you want to do? So, I'm trying to go with these like highly spiced, like sort of Sicilian inspired Middle Eastern things. And I'm getting results and I'm like, oh, this is okay. I'm not excited. Then I decided, well, let me try to go lighter and make this kind of think of like a fennel salad or something, even though it did have fennel seed in it. And I came up with like this strawberry fennel thing, which was really fun,
Nice.
And good charcuterie board sauce. Occasionally I make it. We only made it for a limited time, but then, every once in a while, somebody who had the sauce from back in the days like, oh, I really miss that. So I'll make a little half case batch of it or something like that. So I did the Extreme Karma. I'm staring at 5 pallets of sauce, which I'd never made anything like that quantity. And it's sitting in this little tiny 300 square foot garage, shaking up the whole place. And it's December. And they're like, so is it it's on the show, right? It's like, well, oh yeah, it is. I mean, anything could happen, but yeah, sure. Probably.
Yeah.
And then, it was like 3 weeks later, all of it was gone. So then I was like, then I had to buy peppers I was getting them airmail, or actually Southwest shipping them from Southern California for a while until the next season came along and I could plant some new stuff. So that was like, example of being flat footed because I didn't expect that, to happen. So there was a gentleman who passed away who was doing Moruga scorpions out of New Mexico. They were pretty good too. But I found out, United, Southwest have these air freight services that are fairly reasonable. You just have to go get somebody to drop the stuff off at the terminal, and you have to go to the terminal to pick it up. Wow. And it just rides along. Huh. Consequently, I'm still on their mailing list. So every month, it's like I get these strange emails that say, we're now accepting cadavers in St. Louis. It's like, I don't know why they think I need to be on the cadaver list, but maybe it was the 200 pounds or something. I don't know. Yeah. So that's kind of funny, but that's, so that got going, and then they're like, oh, we want another custom sauce. And then so and it was, Noah's brief was basically, we want something Acapulco barbecue. That's, some fruit. He may have said apricots, I think. Maybe I did, or we were talking about apricots, I think, in some other context as well. Yeah, we had Red Jacket Orchard at that time or prior was like the largest apricot orchard on east of the Rockies. And I got challenged by them once because the grower who's no longer there, and then actually this never worked out for Ghost Island, but he came up to me and like, when at one of the events, Finger Lakes Cork and Fork, which was a fun thing where I wrangled a bunch of different chefs and farms together, and I had this like 3 sisters dish with all these like candied bacon and things. I found like 18 ingredients from 14 different farms and wineries to put together for this one event, for this one dish, which was a lot. And I love doing that. That was so much fun. But he came over to me, the manager of the orchard manager came over and yelled at me because I had a sauce that had like mango in it, instead of apricots. Why aren't you using apricots? Of course, now our apricots are coming from Oregon, but that's the way the ball bounces right now. They didn't have quite enough to sustain us long term with that. But they're a great business. So I love their cider, and we use some of their stuff. And when they had a country store, they were a good customer there as well. But I think they have. I don't know if they plan to reopen that in Geneva, but hopefully someday.
Do you? Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that's what came. Eventually, they said, "Oh, by the way, did we tell you this is going to be the next Hot One sauce?" That was a surprise. Oh, so that now it's the Los Calientes Verde, and then I was like, "Hey, I was really happy with the Verde sales because things are now taking off." And I'm like, how can we do more stuff? And then I said, no, hey, how about we do a Rojo version? Do you think about that? So then we did that. Then there was more and more diversification in what we were doing to kind of sell more sauce, basically. So
yeah.
And now that's not in the lineup now, right? You're doing a different one.
Yeah, we're doing stuff there. I'm not privy to what the lineup makeups will be in the future at this point. I know that this year is like a 10-year anniversary thing. They were doing some new things. Oh, wow. I know that Los Calientes has been kind of a favorite sauce among the fans and buyers. So They are very keenly interested in its future, as am I.
Yeah.
But we got a lot of deals and discussions going on at the moment about how things are going to shape up in the future. So we just had the new president of Heatness was just out visiting the factory. Jeremy was just White was just touring the factory yesterday. So
nice. Nice.
He's like, this is the first hot salsa factory I've been to. And I was like, this is great because we're doing funkin' hot today. You're lucky. He's like, where's my mask? It's like, oh, you'll be fine. As long as you're not rinsing the buckets, you'll probably make it. Yeah. Cold water first rinse. That's the key. Just don't hit it.
We have a hood over our sink. Mm-hmm. Makes a big difference.
That's a great idea.
We actually just piped it into one of our kettle hoods, so it's not even its own separate air system. We just lengthened the hood basically to keep it over the sink.
For a long time, we bottled with a 30-gallon beer kettle, and and it just fit into. We bottle out of a restaurant, and it just barely, this giant kettle would just barely fit into their dishwasher. And so we would just slide it in there, close it, and run it like 4 or 5 times without opening it. And then we could open it and it was safe.
Yeah. The space itself isn't too bad because we do have very large air handling system and a lot of air moving through it. But if you're right over a bucket, it's bad. So we've talked about an automatic bucket, and we have also these totes. So we take these IBCs and we just open the tops of them, and we can't use them forever, but they're pretty economical because people are always trying to get our friends at a brewery down the road. They buy flavorings and other things in these IBCs. And I think they're around 250 gallons, 240. So we use those as blending vessels for some things. And similarly, it's like, you got to clean those things out. And, it's once you hit them with the hot water, it's like, wow, that's really irritating. So,
Join us next week for part 2. This has been a Spike Mine Media production.